Hello and welcome to a Week 16 edition of the Bleacher Report Fantasy Football Show. My name is Adam Levitan. Established the run, as always, joined by Michael Leone to get you guys set for fantasy semifinal week. Leone, is that a Sean Alexander, or what are we working with here today ahead of
We
tonight's big NFC West showdown?
Matt Hasselback. I used to have a love for Matt Hasselback when he said, we're going to take the ball and we're going to score. Didn't end well, but still appreciated the moxie.
No one listening remembers who Matt Hasselbeck is. However, he was one of the better backup journeyman quarterbacks. And Leone's wearing his jersey. Oh, he was not a backup journeyman? I think he was.
But
I
Tim
think he was.
Hasselback, maybe. Matt Hasselback was a good starter there for a while.
All right. Anyways, on today's show, we are going to go over some players that may have been underperforming lately or some thin spots that we think are good starts or must starts for you here in fantasy semifinal week. Hopefully, some guys that you have questions about. Speaking of questions, if you drop questions into the chat, we'll go to as many as we can here over the next 20 to 30 minutes or so. And lastly, if you're watching this show, I assume you are in your fantasy semifinals. Shout out to you. Congratulations. Let's get to our list here, Leone, and we will go with our first player who we think is a must start here in week 16. We're going to go with Teteroa McMillan. I always find McMillan's floor to be lower than maybe people think because there are so many times where they're trying to hide Bryce Young. We're just going to run the ball. Bryce is only going to drop back 15 to 20 times. We're going to try to win by playing defense. In this game, it's hard to execute. Everybody who plays Tampa, their game plan is throw, throw, and throw more, and you can throw on them. And I think Baker, with a healthy supporting cast, is going to be pushing the Panthers' offense. They're going to have to score some points. So when volume's been there for Tederick McMillan, he's been very, very good. I think it will be there this week. Leone, thoughts on T-Mac here against the Bucks?
Yeah, we have Tampa Bay increasing opposition pass rate relative to expectation at the highest in the league, even aside from expectation, third highest in the league. So this is something that's been consistent with them year over year. We've hit on it on this show a few times, but teams are going to throw against them. Had a lot of volatility with Bryce Young this year. Hopefully, this higher pass rate puts him on the right side of volatility. Maybe some small concern on McMillan's target share dropping the last couple of weeks with Jalen Coker playing really well, but I think more likely than not, that's good that the offense is functioning at a higher level. We've seen Bryce Young's efficiency be up there. Some of his best games of his entire career have happened over this last 5 game stretch. So look for, even if Coker continues to do well, McMillan's target share to bounce back over 20%.
Yeah, and I have some tickets on him to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, which he slid behind Trevion Henderson, slid behind Jackson Dart. A big game here would go a long way for Tedero McMillan get back in that Offensive Rookie of the Year race. Second player on the list as a must start here in week 16 is Jalen Hurts. Now, I know that it's been kind of a rocky ride for the Eagles offense. You saw last week against the lowly opponent in the Raiders, Hurts had 3 touchdown passes on just 15 attempts. This is an awesome spot here against Washington. He can run all over them. He can throw all over them. Eagles remain very motivated, I think, to get their offense untracked. And so when they have chances to run up the score, I think they're going to take those chances here down the stretch. They just want to go into the playoffs feeling good about their offense. So Jalen Hurts, I think, one of the best quarterback plays on the slate. Leone, any more thoughts here on Mr. Hurts?
Yeah, I like that they had Hurts under center a little bit more last week. I think that opens up the run game a little bit, opens up the play action a little bit. We can see some more per play efficiency from them. The matchup against Washington, we have them increasing yards per attempt in particular at the third highest rate in the entire league, and that's where Hurts shines. When he can go get downfield to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, rip off these big chunk plays. Washington's a great matchup for that to happen against. In terms of pure fantasy points, our DVP metric over at ETR has this as the sixth most favorable quarterback matchup.
All right. Let's go to some chats. We are men of the people. And so we will answer the questions from the people. First one comes from Packerbacker 84. He says, should I start Kyron Williams tonight? So it is a tricky situation here for Kyron because Blake Corum has played so well. So what you're seeing now is full-blown series by series type of stuff. And even when they get around the goal line, they're not going to Kyron. Now, I do think it's very good for Kyron that Devontae Adams is out tonight, and you get some weather stuff going on as well there in Seattle. So I don't know what your other option is, Packer backer, but I kind of like Kyron tonight on more likely to score a touchdown without Devontae, and maybe the passing rate gets decreased also because of the weather. So yeah, Leon, any more thoughts on Kyron tonight?
A little bit of hope that his pass catching role is better than it's been with Devontae Adams out. He's still the back that's running routes, almost twice as often as Blake Corum. The targets just haven't gone there because you've got Puka and Devontae to throw to. That could change a little bit with no Devontae. Also, with some weather issues in that game, could maybe funnel some more screen stuff, some lower ADOT targets for Matthew Stafford.
Chad Colson says George Pickens or Cortland Sutton. Pickens has been bad the last 2 weeks and really buried me in a big way in a lot of my stuff. Now he gets a very difficult matchup here against the Chargers. I think I would still be hard pressed to play Sutton over Pickens, though. Leonie, what do you think, Pickens or Sutton?
I'm Team Pickens here. We get a dome game with Dak and this Dallas offense that generally is going to put up fantasy points, and yeah, I think there's just going to be higher variance with CeeDee Lamb in the mix, taking more targets from Pickens, but Pickens is still really high touchdown upside bet and a team that will chuck a ton if they do get behind.
Gojo Amaral says, should I start Colby Parkinson tonight or Tyler Warren? Unfortunately for Tyler Warren, going to Philip Rivers hurts, right? Like there's not as much of that RPO stuff that we saw Tyler Warren be so successful on early in the year. So I think this one is pretty close without Devontae Adams. What do you think, Leonie Parkinson or Tyler Warren?
So in terms of closeness, we have them both projected for exactly 8.3 half PPR points. So it could not get any closer. Uh, if it's full PPR, I still think I like Tyler Warren here, where it's a dome game. Rivers is going to have all short ADOT stuff. I think he's going to have a good completion rate. There's no pass rush from San Francisco. I think there might be enough there for him to out volume Colby Parkinson, but Parkinson's the better bet for a touchdown.
B. Cimarao says DJ Moore or Terry McLaurin. Really interesting spot for DJ Moore here because Luther Burden was ruled out today and Roma Dunze is also out here. And so DJ Moore has been bad for much of this season. However, really good spot for him. Meanwhile, McLaurin is dealing with Marcus Mariota at quarterback against a very good Eagles defense. What do you think here, Leonie McLaurin or DJ Moore?
This one's really close. Our projections have McLaurin up a little bit, but we're still working on the Bears Packers setup. Some concern that that's maybe a boring run heavy game. The first matchup was between these two teams, but with DJ Moore having a big week last week and those guys out, on feel, I'd be tempted to ride the hot streak there and go with DJ Moore.
Okay. Cody says Darren Waller or Colston Loveland. So this would be no-brainer Waller for me if Tua Tagovailoa was starting. I still think, given the matchup, that it's Darren Waller for me. However, with all these guys out, I could make a case if I thought Loveland was going to play a bunch of wide receiver in that game on Saturday with those guys out. So tricky one here, Leonie Waller or Colston Loveland.
It's so close. I think I'd go with the upside of Waller, though. He's shown it a few times where he can turn a few targets into a big fantasy output because they're utilizing him so much in the red zone. And I know it let us down last week, but this DVP matchup against the Bengals is just outrageous for tight ends overall in the season. And I'd probably keep chasing that.
All right. Last chat before we get back to the list here. Rory says Travis Kelce or Colby Parkinson. It's a mess with the Chiefs right now because of this Mahomes injury and they're eliminated from the playoffs. If you're Travis Kelce, do you really want to play out the string with Gardner Minshew? So I have concerns about role on Travis Kelce here now that they're eliminated. What do you think, Leonie Kelce or Parkinson?
I still like Kelsey here. Definitely acknowledging those concerns. I think it's a good matchup for passing. We mentioned Tampa Bay increasing the opposition pass rate. Tennessee has a bunch too, despite being a bad team, just because their run defense is pretty solid and their pass defense has been putrid. 7 of the last 8 opponents have had a positive passer over expectation against them. You've got no Rashee Rice for Kansas City. As long as Kelsey's out there and they're not severely limiting him with the playoffs out of contention, I do think he's set up for a pretty strong volume day.
All right. Let's get back to our list. We'll keep getting to some more chats as we move along here, but let's get back to our list now of players we like in week 16. We already mentioned McMillan and Hurts. Number 3 on the list is Jacoby Myers. Now, I don't normally like playing wide receivers against Denver. However, Jacoby Myers plays in a spot where he will mostly avoid Patrick Surtain. And so not only does he project for more efficiency than the outside wide receivers like Brian Thomas Jr., he also projects to see more targets. And Myers has already emerged as the favorite target for Trevor Lawrence here since the trade. So there is a chance this game is more shootout-ish than I think people think. And if it does turn into that, Myers is going to be a big part of it. So yeah, Leone, any thoughts on Jacoby here this week?
Yeah, the type of defense Denver plays, we actually have them funneling targets to the wide receiver position despite Patrick Surtain. So essentially, all the receivers that aren't being covered by Patrick Surtain really get a big boost in target share. Jacoby's looked a lot better with capable quarterback play, and Trevor Lawrence has now put together 4 straight games with 8.1 yards per attempt or higher. He had done that just once in the previous, I think, 9 or 10 games. So it seems like something has clicked for him. Brian Thomas Jr.'s back to, kind of again, get that coverage over on Patrick Surtain, give some help to Jacoby Myers. So I really do like this spot. I think, Jacksonville is going to be forced to throw in this matchup too.
For sure. And for any of our DFS brothers out there, people are not going to play Jacoby, I don't think. They're just afraid of the spot when maybe if you take a little bit closer look, it's not as bad as it seems. Number 4 on our list is a guy that we've already gotten questions about here, Leone, Colby Parkinson. Now, I don't want to go overboard on this because Terrence Ferguson could pop up also, but it is an important game and an important spot without Devontae Adams here. And Parkinson has had a really big red zone role. I mean, we mentioned Darren Waller's red zone role. Rams have been very throw heavy around the goal line, and now they won't have Devontae Adams. So I think a pretty good bet for a touchdown tonight, despite the weather situation here in Seattle. Any more thoughts on the tight end situation with the Rams right now?
Yeah, Parkinson's been efficient. You mentioned the role in terms of red zone usage, leading to 6 receiving touchdowns. He's at 1.95 yards per out run. That's strong. Since Tyler Higbee has been out, so from week 12 on, we've seen double-digit target shares every single week for Colby Parkinson, at least 16% the last 3 games. With Devontae Adams out, you would think that's the absolute floor for him. So I do like this play. We should see a lot of multiple tight end sets for the Rams, maybe a little bit more run heavy, but utilizing the tight ends in the play action game a ton.
All right. Let's get back to some questions from the people here. Great Wall says Michael Carter or Audric Estime. Yeah, I think that's an easy one for me. Michael Carter, Bam Knight is out. Obviously, Trey Benson and James Conner are out. DeMercado is going to play more than he did last week. However, Michael Carter, I think, is still going to be the feature back. Meanwhile, Audric Estime, I think, is going to share with Evan Hull. So pretty easy for me there on Michael Carter. I believe our producer Cole is putting up a poll for you guys right now. Who has higher upside, Ted McMillan or Jacoby Myers? I am not going to answer that because I don't want to sway the voting. Last thing I would want to do is steal the election here, Leone. So we will go. We will let you guys give your answers there. Well, it looks like 51-49. Wow. Right down the middle. 51-49 Tet. Let's go to Silos. He says McLaurin or Egbuka here this week. Egbuka's role got slashed with Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan back last week. Doesn't mean that he can't perform well here against Carolina, but I did want to note that. What do you think, Leone, McLaurin or Egbuka?
I think I'd go McLaurin here because of that role reduction for Egbuka with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both there. And now it looks like we're going to get Cade Otton back as well. There's part of me that's like pre-tilting Egbuka having these really high efficiency and touchdown games after, we've been playing him with the usage spike and we haven't been rewarded for it. But yeah, even in a difficult matchup, I'll take McLaurin and where his target share numbers have been.
JJ85 says Travion Henderson or RJ Harvey. 2 rookie running backs here. Sounds like RJ Harvey's rib injury is fine. Travion Henderson comes in very hot. However, Ramondre is going to play a ton of snaps, especially in passing situations. What do you think, Leone Trevion or RJ Harvey this week?
This is a projection we've been looking at really closely. Ultimately, have RJ Harvey, the red zone role has been really strong for him. And I think there's a chance New England doesn't run quite as much as people think this week. They were super successful last week, but against Baltimore, I think we could see them throwing a bit more. And they haven't trusted Henderson in, the pass blocking role and in those situations as much as we would have hoped.
Jay Ward says, please help me out. He needs two of Justin Jefferson, Jacoby Myers, Lad McConkey, Egbuka, and Waddle. My God. Um, the Jefferson thing is interesting. Obviously, he continues to see a lot of targets. The efficiency has been so bad from JJ McCarthy. We're gonna get to a couple, we're gonna get to Lad later, actually, as a tease. I think my gut is Jefferson and Lad, maybe, Leone, but yeah, you need two out of Jefferson, Myers, Lad, Egbuka, and Waddle.
I think I'm Jefferson and Jacoby. I think you have to play
Okay.
Jefferson. Pretty good matchup against the Giants. I know it's been frustrating, but I'd go with him and then either Jacoby or Ladd. And we've got Jacoby projected higher. The pass game for the Chargers has been pretty rough the last few weeks. O-line issues. Herbert's dealing with that hand injury. They've
Yeah.
called plays a bit more conservatively.
Speaking of that Cowboys game, Great Wall says Colby Parkinson or Jake Ferguson here. Cowboys play the Chargers, who have been very good against perimeter wide receivers. So maybe that's a little bit of a boost here for Jake Ferguson. What do you think, Leone, Parkinson or Ferguson?
I like Parkinson here. I think, we've seen kind of the shine wear off Jake Ferguson a little bit now that all the receivers are healthy and he was running really hot on touchdowns at the beginning of the season. This is more what we expected. So I'm going to go Parkinson with a bit more volume upside with Devontae Adams out.
Gidro says he needs two in full PPR, Quinshon Judkins, Amarian Hampton, or Travis Etienne. You know, with Bashal Tutin out, there is not a lot of threat to Etienne around the goal line. And they had previously used Tutin around there. Now they're playing the Broncos. It's not easy, but I definitely think I would play Etienne. And then it comes down to Judkins or Hampton. Considering they're playing Dallas, I think that it's Hampton for me. But yeah, what do you think, Lenny? I had to sit one out of Judkins, Hampton, and Etienne.
I'm not sitting Etienne. I'm with you there. If Judkins was playing anybody else, I'd say to sit him. There's some issues with the O line for them as well, and the quarterback play kind of jeopardizes the entire offense. But teams have run all over this Buffalo defense, even the bad
Yeah.
teams, which makes it pretty close. I still think I'd go Hampton and hope for more of a shootout there. It could be more of a boring outdoor game, bad weather in Cleveland, but it's close.
Yep. Cam Bleeding Green says Dalton Kincaid or Dalton Schultz. Two Daltons. Well, Dalton Kincaid missed practice again today for Leone's Bills. So even if Kincaid ends up playing, like he's only going to run half the routes or something like that. So my gut here is Schultz, but what do you think, Leone?
I think it's Schultz as well. Schultz has actually been a really good PPR play the second half of the year.
Yeah.
He's had multiple games more than 20% target share, got up to 32% last week, which is kind of crazy. I'd ride the hot hand with Dalton Schultz. You also get a dome game, protected environment, a little bit better for the passing game overall.
All right. Last question here before we get back to our list comes from C. Bennett. He says Aldrich Estime, Kimani Vidal, or Blake Corum. So a lot of Estime questions here with Devin Neal out. I just don't think it's that clean between him and Evan Hull and Taysom Hill. And I know they're playing the Jets, but I don't find it that clean. I like Vidal as the one who's playing the passing snaps against the Cowboys. You could also make a case to me for Corum if you wanted. What do you think, Leone? Estime, Vidal, or Corum?
I think it's Estime or Vidal. I know Corum's ran really hot, but I'm a little concerned that, it's run good. That's the type of play that could go really south quickly if he doesn't find the end zone. I think I'd take a chance on Estime. I think, the tide's swinging a little bit in favor of Hampton for the Chargers. Estime against this Jets team that just got destroyed last week, obliterated. New Orleans is at home favored. I'd take a chance there.
Yeah, a lot of estimate questions out there. Super interesting for sure. All right, let's get back to our list here for our final two players. Number 5 on the list is going to be DK Metcalf. When you play the Lions on turf, you are going to need to score a lot of points. And whereas Aaron Rodgers has been very conservative in this season, throwing short a lot, it's not great for DK Metcalf. They can't afford to do that in this game. They also project to be behind. And Terry Arnold is out for the Lions. Brian Branch is out for the Lions. And so you get a really clean matchup here for DK Metcalf to break off some big plays. I know Copilot has some thoughts about this here as well. Leone, thoughts on DK Metcalf?
Yeah, the matchup against Detroit is the best matchup he's going to get all season. It's a dome game, and this Detroit team, they play man defense at nearly the highest rate in the entire league. They allow the highest average depth of target in the entire league. Those both suit DK Metcalf's skill sets particularly well. In general, any outside wide receiver is going to see a bump when you face a defense that plays that way. I think we got Copilot lined up for the next
Got it.
question here, where we get another kind of dome game for the last guy on our list. But Metcalf, I think the ceiling here is as high as it's been all season because of the strength of the Detroit offense and the variance that their defense creates.
Indeed. All right. Now we go to the co-pilot for the last one. It is Lad McConkey facing the Cowboys. My gut says this is one of the best possible matchups for a wide receiver. Does co-pilot Leone agree on this spot for Lad against the Cowboys?
Copilot does agree. Copilot is in agreement with us on a couple spots, not just the Lad one, but also highlighted the Jacksonville wide receivers against Denver, benefiting from Denver's high man coverage rate, weak secondary. Myers, in particularly, logging a 26% target share and 2.2 yards per route run. And then they highlighted Lad against Dallas's struggling slot cornerback, Ruddy Stord, who's allowed a 30th percentile in fantasy points per route. Makes McConkey a strong streaming option. I'm with Lad too. I know I mentioned the Chargers pass game looking a bit weaker recently. And while that's been true because of some O-line issues and Herbert's hand, this is a get right spot. Dome game against Dallas. Game absolutely has some shootout vibes. Checking the total in this game right now, we get a game total here of 49 and a half. It's definitely on the higher end for the week. I think only the Detroit Pittsburgh game that we just hit on has a higher total than this one.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, if Herbert can get right, and you would think as he gets further and further away from that wrist injury, maybe the cast gets smaller and smaller. He's able to play better, and I think he'll need to here against the Cowboys. All right. We got time for about 5 minutes more of questions here. Nick's Patriot says Jacoby Myers or Wandale Robinson. It has been such a bad year for fantasy wide receivers, Leone, that Wandale Robinson has been a top 10 wide receiver this season in full PPR. So I get it. It's not a crazy question. In fact, I might prefer Wandale over Jacoby. It's certainly close. What do you think, Jacoby or Wandale?
I'm going to go Jacoby. I like where this Jacksonville offense is headed. We haven't projected similarly, but that Minnesota defense can cause problems for any quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback. So I think there's more variance on the downside
Yeah.
with Wandale.
James says, is Brees Hall worth the start this week? I was worried about Brees Hall because he's going to be a free agent and the Jets are dead. However, he's practicing full, played last week, played the week before. So I don't really see a reason to sit Brees Hall unless you had something much better here than him. Yeah, I think as long as this game is close against the Saints, he's going to be there.
Yeah,
Lions, go ahead.
I was just talking to my friend Ben Gretch, who really looks at the usage each week to kind of dive in what happened. And Brees had 9 touches in the first half, 3 in the first 4 snaps of the second half, and then he only had 2 more rest of the game because it was such a blowout.
Yeah.
Obviously, that risk is on the table, but against New Orleans this week with a tighter spread, I think it's reduced.
Lions 220 says DeAndre Swift or Quinshawn Judkins. So they did list Swift questionable here for this game on Saturday night against the Packers. He's been listed questionable before and been fine. So I'm not overly worried about it, but it is an interesting question. Swift or Judkins, Leone?
I'd go Judkins, absolutely dominating the carry share there. Buffalo defense is the opposite of the Tampa Bay defense. They force teams to run, teams take advantage. They do so efficiently. We've seen it time and time again this season. So even playing from behind, we'll see teams continue to run the ball against Buffalo.
Brett Seeberger says Aaron Jones, Emeka Egbuka, or Jalen Waddle in half PPR. This would have been Waddle for me easily if it was Tua. If you think Quinn Ewers is going to play well, then I still think that it's Waddle. I have some concern that Ewers is going to be much worse than Tua. My gut is still Waddle here, Leone, but if you wanted to tell me Aaron Jones in a really good matchup, I could bite off on that too. What do you think?
I think I'd play Waddle here of this group. It's very close. I think it'd be Aaron Jones or Waddle, as much as it pains me to sit Igbuka, who I really hoped would be, must start this time of the season.
Yeah.
Jones and Waddle ahead for me.
Calvin Clay says, I already have Jackson Smith and Jigba. I need another starter and possible flex. Michael Wilson, Brian Thomas, Christian Watson, or T. Higgins. Well, Marvin Harrison seems to be trending towards playing. If he does, I'd be a bit scared to play Michael Wilson. Christian Watson is banged up. T. Higgins, I would consider questionable. If T. Higgins plays, I would play him. So this is a really tough one to answer now. Oh, and by the way, Brian Thomas is going to see a lot of Surtain. So, yeah, I would say T. Higgins and hope that if T. Higgins plays, you play him. Get Offline says Bowers or Parkinson. Yes, we have reached my favorite time of year where all the elite tight end freaks are now asking Bowers or Colby Parkinson, who was undrafted. Another brutal spot for Brock Bowers here against the Texans, although McBride really tore them up last week. What do you think, Leone? Bowers or Parkinson?
I think you got to play Bowers here. I know it's been frustrating. The systemic risk on the Raiders offense is terrible, but he's just on another level as a player from Kobe Parkinson, and you've got to, gamble on that.
Gnarly J30 says AJ Brown or Michael Wilson. I think that is Michael Wilson if Marvin Harrison is out, but I expect Marvin Harrison to play at this point, and so I will go with AJ Brown. Yankees Daniel says Juwan Johnson or Aronde Gadsden. I think pretty good spot for Juwan Johnson. Vele is out and Devin Neal is out. I think I'd play Juwan Johnson here. Leone, what do you think? Juwan or Gadsden?
That's tough because I do think there's some DVP stuff that favors Gadsden. But I'm looking at it. This Jets defense is so atrocious. I think you're right. It's Jawan. He'll be the clear number two with Bay layout.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you on Jawan.
And I mean, they might not be able to run the ball with Estime and Hull, so they could have a more throw heavy attack. C. Bennett, Vidal, Estime, or Corm. Oh, I think we got that one already. Dev Dog says Kyron Williams or Travis Etienne. Man, how rich. You have to bench one of Kyron Williams or Travis Etienne here. I would be hard pressed, I think, to bench Etienne without Tootin. What do you think, Leone?
Yeah, I'm playing ETN. He's pretty much a start in the vast majority of formats, unless it's a real shallow league.
Leo says Parkinson, Waller, or Bowers. Uh, Parkinson, Waller, or
I'd
Bowers.
say Bowers at tight end for me there.
Yeah.
And I Pollard's looked better lately. The offense has been a little bit more on track. You probably got to go the running back in your flex, even though I know it's always scary playing Pollard.
All right. Last one before we get out of here is Noble Hawk says Quinshawn Judkins or Lad McConkey. Man, like I had this spot circled for Lad McConkey, like in the dome, late in the season, against the Cowboys, who really struggled to defend perimeter wide receivers. I can't believe this is where we're at, Leone. Judkins or Lad McConkey.
And you can see the poll up here, Metcalf or Lad McConkey, DK winning that with a nice 69% to the 31% for Lad. I'm on Judkins here as well. And it's just crazy. Some of the runouts for Ladd, Brian Thomas Jr., some of these year two wide receivers, really thought it was going to be a special year for them. And it hasn't materialized for one reason or another.
All right. Just to get back to our list here to recap it. I appreciate all the questions from everyone, by the way. A lot of really good questions today. Recapping some guys we think are good starts here in fantasy semifinal week. Tedoroa McMillan against a pass funneling Bucks defense. Jalen Hurts in one of the best possible spots against the Commanders. Jacoby Myers playing the slot against Denver is huge. You avoid Patrick Surtain. Colby Parkinson as a red zone threat without Devontae Adams out there. DK Metcalf in the best matchup he'll get all year in the dome against a banged up Lions secondary. And Lad McConkey. I know it's been rough lately, but this is one of the best matchups Lad can get as well here at Dallas. Good luck to everyone in your fantasy semifinals. Get out there, win your week. We'll see you back here next week to get set for the fantasy championships. For Leone, for everyone behind the scenes at Bleacher Report and everyone behind the scenes at ETR, I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.